Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Yovanushayanam sarga Ashandasya cha sambhavaha Atmano bandha mokshau cha Vyavasthanam svarupataha. Translation. Please also explain how, merged in the body of the Lord, living beings are created and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. Purport. The progressive devotee of the Lord must inquire from the bona fide spiritual master how living entities merged in the body of the Lord again come back at the time of creation. There are two kinds of living entities. There are the ever-liberated, unconditioned living beings as well as the ever-conditioned living beings. Of the ever-conditioned living beings, there are two divisions. They are the faithful and the infidels. Of the faithful, there are again two divisions, namely the devotees and the mental speculators. The mental speculators desire to merge into the existence of the Lord or to become one with the Lord, whereas the devotees of the Lord desire to keep separate identities and constantly engage in the service of the Lord. The devotees who are not fully purified, as well as the empiric philosophers, become conditioned again during the next creation for further purification. Such conditioned souls become liberated by further progress of devotional service to the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit asked all these questions from the bona fide spiritual master in order to become fully equipped in the science of God. Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring from Shukadeva Swami. Prabhupada comments that the devotee who's aspiring to make progress should also inquire in the same way about Atra Sarga Visargascha Sthanam Poshanam Utayaha Manvantara Isha Anukata Nirodho Muktir Ashraya. These are the topics of Bhagavatam. The ultimate topic is Ashraya. The ultimate topic is who is the supreme shelter of everything? Krishna. But what is he sheltering and how is it being sheltered? That the progressive devotee of the Lord must inquire how all these things are going on. How there is everything emanates from the Supreme Lord, how the material creation is made, how it's maintained, how the Lord nourishes His devotees, how there is destruction, the history of the universe, topics of Krishna, topics of liberation, all these things, they should be discussed by the progressive devotee. Progressive devotee means that he's interested in making progress. Now, to be interested in making progress, first of all, we have to consider that we need to make progress. One thing we often see is that devotees, they come to Krishna consciousness, they're attracted to Krishna consciousness. But from the very beginning, they simply like to hear about different leelas of Krishna. But they're not very interested to hear about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and to understand it in detail. Now, generally, such devotees consider themselves from the very beginning eligible to hear so many different leelas. They consider themselves already advanced. They don't understand what is their actual eligibility. So actually they can't make any progress because they think they're already there. However, as long as one is in the conditioned state, is conditioned devotee, then even though he's performing some kind of devotional service, he may have to come back. Here it's stated, devotees who are not fully purified, they have to come back again. So unless one gets on the path of progressive devotional service, then he can't make progress. It's a very simple thing to understand. Unless the endeavor is there to make progress, then there's no question of making any progress. But generally we see many, many devotees, they come with this idea already very advanced. And they take some pleasure in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, which are naturally pleasing to the devotees. We see that when there is a katha organized here in Gujarat, it's not only Gujarat, but more so in Gujarat than in other parts of India. Many, many people come. There are famous speakers, Ramesh Bhai Ojha, Morari Bapu, these are two of the most famous. They are popular speakers on Krishna Katha, Ram Katha, and many people come to hear them when they're speaking, because they speak in a very pleasing way, which is not surprising because the pastimes of the Lord are pleasing. However, what is lacking in such Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, what is lacking in such recitations is the desire to make progress. There's no consideration of progress. It's simply considered that everyone's a devotee, which they are. Those who go to hear, they're devotees. Otherwise, why would you like to sit and listen to the pastimes of the Lord unless you're a devotee? But it's considered, yes, they're devotees, so alright, okay. Very nice. Now we're devotees, we'll enjoy hearing about Krishna Katha. That's, especially here in Gujarat, so many people they like to hear. They're naturally devotees of Krishna. Not only Gujarat, so many parts of India. We see here, people they're naturally, very natural inclination, they like to chant Hare Krishna. But because there's no proper philosophical teaching to them, there's no sense of the urgency of becoming Krishna conscious, then they don't actually make tangible progress. They remain in the same position. They come to the katha, they go back, and they're as materially attached, and whatever bad habits they have continue. They're pious people, no doubt. But they don't make any progress. They remain where they are. So we see that, particularly from the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and of course, this was continued by Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Preaching has been very strong. Preaching means teaching. Preaching, there are different factors. First thing is, yena tena pakarena manah krishna nishedana. Somehow or other bring people to Krishna. Then later, sarva vidhi nishedasya etayo eva kinkara. Later on all the rules and regulations can be introduced, but they should be introduced. Simply to attract many people, that's not so much of a big credit here in India. In that regard, we are not doing as well as these big, famous kathakas. We don't have thousands of people coming to our kathas, generally. So to attract many people, that is not such a great thing, but to train them, to teach them in the science of God, as here Parikshit Maharaj, he is certainly eligible to hear about the pastimes of Krishna from the very beginning. But to set the example for others, that's one thing. He's inquiring about all the different topics. And also so that he may properly understand. Everyone is to properly understand. If we simply hear the different leelas of Krishna without understanding who is Krishna, then misunderstanding will be there. One is prone to misunderstanding. Just like, to give another example, today we're mentioning names. There is one, here in Gujarat also very popular, one Shastri, known as Pandurang Shastri, who also people are attracted to. And he speaks on Gita and Bhagavad and Narayana Upanishad, so many things. And it appears like bhakti, but actually he's completely Mayavad. Actually. His ultimate siddhant is Mayavad. And we see all the people, they're attracted to something devotional, then they have this Swami Narayana, which this original Sahajanand Swami was a devotee. But Prabhupada commented that he didn't teach. He is a devotee, but why is it they're worshipping him as God? Prabhupada said because he didn't teach his followers properly. That's why they could make such a mistake. Of course, any bona fide teacher, their followers, at least some of their followers may make a mistake. But if the whole sampradaya becomes based on a mistake, then there's something wrong. So he wasn't. It's easy to bring many people. People will chant, relatively easy. It's also not so easy. But to get people to chant Hare Krishna, come to the temple and do some seva, that is a great facility of India, that even today, people, they like to do these things. They're not here Prabhupada has mentioned two kinds of conditioned souls. One is faithful and one is the Pashandi, those who are opposed to Krishna consciousness. So here in India, it's a different matter. People are more inclined towards Krishna consciousness. Just now we had this program in Ahmedabad. So many last few days. So many big people. Chief Minister was supposed to come, but he's bedridden. But other big ministers and big leaders, big industrialists, they're all coming and appreciating the work of ISKCON. So generally we don't find that very much, to some extent in other countries. But not like in India, where so many people, you simply invite them, they'll come to hear about Krishna. Definitely, even today, despite India's rapid leaping into gross materialism, still the piety is there. So to bring people is one thing, but to teach them, that is required. To teach what is the science of God. These different subjects are there in Bhagavatam, that I was saying. Here there is all the different topics of the science of God. Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. In the beginning of Bhagavatam, it said one should learn the science of God. So this teaching is very much required. Sentimental devotion, people have already, so many. And that we may bring them on that platform also. Some people, they're hardly ready to listen. And they don't have the mental capacity or the inclination or whatever it may be. So such people, they may also be attracted to the temples of ISKCON and the organization. And they can also take up chanting the holy name, be engaged in service, and all these different things. And in this way be purified, even though they may not have a very clear idea of the philosophy. But it's required that at least some devotees, they should study this philosophy very nicely and teach it to others. Otherwise, what will happen? Everything can decline very easily. Everything can become mixed up. Because there's in India we have the whole syndrome of popular bhakti, which is mixed up with commercial bhajans, so-called. Popular Bhagavat reciters, popular Kathakas. And then, so that we see, that's influencing our ISKCON also. That in the temples, here in India especially, they like to sing different songs which are not given by the acharyas. They're also the names of God, but they're not as given by the acharyas. They're given by some cinema artists. Radha Ramana Hari Bol and all this. They're chanting. But none of the acharyas have said, this is some popular song. Even there are so many popular songs, which are the names of God. But our acharyas have particularly given us the Hare Krishna mantra to chant. Or we see in our programs, sometimes the devotees, they like to tell before the public. Last night they were telling some story of Radha and how she is some pastime with Krishna. I wasn't there. Listen, I just heard the beginning and I left. So This is not the way of teaching of the acharyas, who want us to make progress to the point where we can discuss and understand these things. But if people who are not at all on that level, they're very much attached to material sense gratification, then the whole thing becomes spoiled. They like to think, oh, yes, I'll listen to Krishna. It all becomes everything is for their enjoyment. That I'm a sadhu, that's for my enjoyment. People will respect me. It's an easy way of life. You just go around and talk on Radha Leela, and people think you're very advanced. People respect you. You get comfortable living, especially in ISKCON. You see, there's so many cars, and so much money, and you can live very comfortably. And you find some place where you can arrange for eating very nicely, sleeping very nicely, and you live a peaceful life. Don't work too much. And you do so. And you become famous as a preacher by telling so many different stories. But then it just becomes another kind of, then what's the point? There are already so many sadhus like that in India. Why did Prabhupada work so hard to go all over the world? That's already there. Why was he preaching? And then again they'll say that those who are speaking, you're not the body, well, that's just for the neophytes, as if they're very advanced. But simply speaking on these high topics, that doesn't mean you're advanced. Anyone can buy a book and read all these things and memorize it and speak it. It doesn't mean that you have realization just to speak on these things. And generally those who do speak on these things, they don't have realization. We see that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, they didn't speak on these things in public and hardly even in private. These are confidential topics. We see here that Parikshit Maharaj, he's inquiring, how are the living entities manifested from the body of the Lord? How are the Pashandis? How is it that they're coming into existence? What is the existence of the liberated souls? In other words, he wants to understand what is the philosophy by which we can understand God. We see that Krishna was speaking to Arjuna. He didn't start speaking about his Vrindavan pastimes or any such thing. Because Arjuna is taking the position of a conditioned soul. So a conditioned soul needs to know how to act and why to act for his benefit, so that he can make progress. He's conditioned. He needs to make progress from that condition to the condition of a liberated soul. So he needs to understand why. He needs to understand what to do, how to do. There are different stages. Sambandha abhideya prayojan. Sambandha means to understand who is God and what is our relationship with Him. Not simply God is great. People will say God is great, but then they're thinking I'm also great. And they're thinking I am God. So many of these so-called Vaishnavas, they're actually Mayavadis. Because they don't understand, they don't have Sambandha again. And Abhideya means to engage in the service of the Lord. When one is perfect in that, then he can enter into his Swarup, as is mentioned here, Swarupata, the unconditioned stage, the stage when one has his own proper position in the spiritual world. So there are stages we have to go through. And actually we often see that those who they're taking it easy and just making a show of devotion, actually they're often they're envious. We can see. I was just reading yesterday a very interesting statement Prabhupada made in Bhagavatam, purport, that religious systems without a sense of service to the Lord, then they're full of envy. So unless there's that service attitude, then envy will come. One will be envious. He'll think, I am better, others are not very good. Or he'll be in the name of being a devotee of Krishna, he'll be envious of Krishna. Envy is one side and service is the other. One has a service mood, that means he's submissive. If you're not submissive, that means you're envious. Why should I serve Krishna? So we may see that someone is supposed to be serving Krishna, but actually they have expressions of envy for Krishna. They want to enjoy at Krishna's expense. That means we want to try and exploit instead of trying to serve. That means we're still in the exploiting mood. conditioned life where one living being is exploiting another, so we also want to exploit. Here's a position, let me exploit it. Or, you see, there's service to do, but we don't like to do it. The temple is not clean, but I don't want to clean it. Let it be dirty. We don't even know. What does it matter? It's dirty. It means envious. It means we don't have the idea to serve Krishna very nicely. So we'll be sitting in a dirty temple and everything filthy and talking on the intimate pastimes of Krishna. This is all nonsense. Parikshit Maharaj, he was not such a nonsense. That's why we're hearing from Shukadeva and Parikshit. We're not hearing from any nonsense. We're hearing from this parampara that's coming down from Shukadeva and Parikshit. Perfect devotees of the Lord. They are authorities who we can hear from. Because they don't just talk about Krishna, but their life is fully merged in the service of Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami, he didn't even want to speak to anybody. He was just wandering around as if a madman. Only when he found a proper disciple would he speak. He found Parikshit Maharaj, and then so many sages came from all over the universe. So, sages means they may have different concepts. Nasab Rishe Yasya Matang Nabhinnam. One is not considered a rishi unless he can extrapolate some different opinion. So, they may be rishis, they may have so many different theories, but when they hear from Shukadeva Goswami, then they can understand what is the actual position of God. So many rishis, they came, that means they had enough humility and submissiveness to hear from Shukadeva Goswami. Even, they were so much humble that even though they were great rishis, famous rishis, they were listening to Shukadeva, young boy. How much humble they were. Who would want to listen from a young boy? But they could understand that even though he's apparently just a young boy, he's highly advanced in Krishna consciousness. He's highly spiritually advanced. So we should listen to him. So Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring how the different living beings emanate from the body of the Lord. How the Pashandis, this is the rascals, how they come. This is an important philosophical question. So many people have this question. But how is it that why are people bad? That means, often we hear this said, that means God must be bad because He made them. Misunderstand. That is clear in the Bhagavad-gita. That Vayam Ditya Biniveshitasyat Ishad Apetasya Vipaya Smritihi. That God is not bad, God is good. But those who adopt a different mood, instead of the mood of service to Krishna, they adopt a mood of enviousness of Krishna. Then they enter the world of fear. One living being is fearing another. Because everyone in this material world, everyone is trying to exploit everyone else. So we're afraid of others. And then when we get someone, they may get a little bit strong position. They try to exploit others. They become very self-confident, very cocky, very proud. That I am better than others. This is conditioned life. This is analyzed in detail. What is the position, material life? Who are those who are envious of Krishna? And here it's discussing about the progressive devotees. Progressive devotee means they're not perfect. They're still conditioned. Means the symptoms of envy, lust, greed, anger, they're still there. Material lust, greed, anger, all these things are still there. But a devotee has to progress to get free from these things. As long as these things are there, then there's no question of understanding Radha and Krishna. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung, that Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Madadi, Abhishta, Aishab Nat Chare Kishe Pabe Radha Krishna. As long as we are absorbed in lust, greed, anger, envy, illusion, all these things, as long as we don't give these things up, then where is the question of attaining to Radha and Krishna? So a progressive devotee knows his position. I am a patitatma. I am a fallen soul. I am not great. Everyone in this material world thinks I am great. Constitutionally I am not great. Krishna is great. And even my position is that anyway the jiva is small, but I'm not only small, but I'm fallen. What is our position? So the progressive devotee knows this is my position, but I have to improve by hearing about Krishna, understanding his position, and fully engaging in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, our position will be the same. Again taking birth. We can go on for many lifetimes like this. Many, many lifetimes. A little bit of bhakti, a little bit of bhakti, material enjoyment. We can go on for many, many lifetimes, compromising with Maya. But we won't get Krishna. We won't go back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, our acharyas, those who are going out and preaching in the world, they tell people very straightforwardly and clearly and strongly, don't be a nonsense. You have to act in such a way as to become free from material enjoyment. This Bhagavatam especially is very strong on this point. Vairagya Vidya, along with knowledge of God, comes, if one is actually developing knowledge of God, then he must develop detachment from this material world. Bhakti Pareshana Bhava Viraktiranyatra Chaisha. That is the test. If one is actually developing his feelings for Krishna, if he's becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness, then he won't have any attraction or attachment to this material world. The Bhagavatam is very, very strong. It's almost frightening to the materialists. You see even the material exchange between the parents and the children, which is considered practically sacred, even that is exposed as being a bluff. You see this son of Chitraketu Maharaj. He was brought after dying. He was poisoned in his cradle. So after dying, the soul was invited back to the same body by Narad Muni, because Chitraketu Maharaj was lamenting so much. So the Narad Muni called the jiva, come and see your father. The jiva said, which father? I had so many fathers. This is not I've been born so many times. This is not my father. He's only thinking he's my father. But just like grains of sand come together by the current in the river and are again separated. So in the same way, different jivas come together and we're thinking, this is my father, this is my son, this is my brother, this is my wife, these are my children. The Bhagavatam is clearly exposing this is all artificial. It's the material relationship between husband, son, relatives, all this. It has no more meaning than grains of sand brought together in a river. Now, of course, in Bhagavatam, Krishna also explains that as long as one is not completely satiated from desires for furtive activities, he should follow the rules and regulations of the Varnashram system. Until one has awakened his taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna, he should follow these things. But at the same time, we should hear and understand that, alright, I'm conditioned, I have to follow different rules and regulations, social rules and regulations. But actually, it's no more meaningful than grains of sand flowing in the river. The river, one grain of sand comes together with another and again separates. Another example is given. Just like guests in a hotel, travelers, they come together. So they may be staying, someone is staying for 1 day, someone is staying for 2 days, someone is staying for 5 days. And then again they go off somewhere else. So someone may be traveling, he's based in Bombay, he's in a hotel Ahmedabad, and he meets someone else from Delhi who's in the same hotel in Ahmedabad. So they may meet each other in the restaurant and say, hello, how are you, this, that, the other. But then again, they go on their way. They don't have a permanent relationship. Just while they meet, they're polite, this, that, and the other. But then again, they go away on their separate business. So in the same way, we get different bodies. And we come together with people. Aunt, uncle, friend, boyfriend, girlfriend. Now that's very prominent here in none of the Vinagas. Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring, what is the actual situation? From Shukadeva Goswami, who is explaining all these things. Hare Krishna. Is there any question about this? Having trouble with your knees these days? I didn't see you sitting like this before. Hare